welcome to another episode of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, good to see you again.
Tim, it's great to be back. Good to see you.
Well, lots going on, but before we get into the good stuff here, let's get through our thank yous and disclaimers. So I want to thank the production crew and all our viewers and anybody who tunes in. We appreciate it. Ken, I know you've had talk to some other folks. We have some guests coming up.
Yeah, we're working on our first guest, and we think it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, we'd like to thank everybody that tunes in and watches. We're recording this actually on Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to everybody out there, including all the dog moms and cat moms that I used to work with. But we have a lot and to go over today in a short period of time. So
all right, so let's get
the disclaimer.
Yeah,
you know the disclaimer. We're not responsible for anything. Don't take us too seriously, and we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, and if you do enjoy it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the like button twice and subscribe. We've got a few things we're going to talk about tonight, time permitting. We're going to get into some what we call the Derby footnotes, the Kentucky Derby footnotes, stadiums by the numbers. That should be kind of interesting, and some NCAA sport updates, in particular with Quinnipiac. But Ken, before we get into the kind of the feature stuff we're going to talk about, we can't avoid this. We weren't going to go into this stuff, but we got to talk about it. Everywhere I turn, Bill Belichick's on the news. I don't get the National Enquirer, but he's on there. He signed a big contract with the University of North Carolina to be the head football coach. Now there's a lot of disgruntled people, I suspect, alumni and fans down there going up with what's going on with him and I guess his girlfriend. Help me out with that.
Well, I mean, look at it. It sounds like it's a bit of a circus. You can't turn anywhere without seeing them. And, I don't think we're going to spend any time really, on that relationship. We're going to take as we do, look at it from a business point of view. He signed a 5-year, $50 million contract with UNC. I am sure they thought that, they won lotto when they signed him. And now they have all this extracurricular stuff going on. There was an article recently about June 1st. Coach Belichick had a buyout up to June 1st of $10 million. On June 1st, that gets reduced to $1 million. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens because, football teams don't, colleges don't like drama.
Sure.
And, he's replaced, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on the news, and he's replaced Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. You can't turn anywhere without seeing them. And it's going to be really interesting to see whether, they agree to a buyout and just agree to move on. And I think, these are real live discussions happening. The donors and the alumni, they're definitely having that. Is it really can they really think he can win? Or should everybody just move on? And,
they don't want these
distractions. The next 3 weeks to a month.
Yeah, you can't have this come up at every press conference. You got all these football players committed. You got the alumni. You got a school that's trying to do the right thing. You don't need if this becomes a distraction. They got to vet it out right now. Either fish or cut bait, get it done. He's either got to focus on this. And remember, his years in New England, he didn't talk to the press very often. And all of a sudden, it's a press circus around. So we'll see what happens. It's a huge distraction. It's not like Belichick. I'm not sure he created it, but neither here nor there. The fact is, it's there.
It's there. It's now it's going to be a business decision. I think it's really going to come down to the money, whether they think he really can turn this program around and win. They have a $1 million buyout for a school like that is nothing, and if that's the way that everybody chooses to go and go on their merry way, it'll be really interesting to see over the next month. I think this will all be settled.
Yep.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen quickly. But I think the other next topic that we want to follow up on a little bit is the Boston Celtics. I'm back in the New York area. You're still in Boston. The new ownership had agreed to a $6.2 billion purchase price, and I know. The New York City was getting ready to celebrate, not necessarily the ticket tape parade when they went up 2-0. Celtics came back in game 3. Tim, what's going on up in Boston? Are people panicking?
People have been coming out of hospice care up here for the last few days up until yesterday. The game was yesterday afternoon. Celtics won on the road, but they lost, as Ken said, they lost the first 2 games that they have a 20-point lead in each game. They had a 20-point lead. They lost them both to the New York Knicks. New York Knicks came back. They won both games in the Boston Garden. And in New York, and Boston fans are just irate. The talk was the team's over. They're going to disband. The coach will be gone. The star players will be gone. You won't see this team ever again. It was already talking yesterday, even before the game. Today, there's a little bit more calmness. We'll see what happens in Game 4. But like you said, in what we like to talk about is you're the new owner. You just spent $6 billion just for a team. There's no stadium involved. You bought a team, and now you're down 0-2 in the second round, and you got all these superstars, and you're sitting there and you're saying, like you said, do I have buyer's remorse?
Yeah. Do I want to renegotiate the purchase price? And I mean, New York, we talked a little bit about the Knicks when I made the assumption that LeBron maybe he would come here to help win that title. After Game 2, I mean, the Knick tickets were going for $600 for the cheap seats for Game 3. This is a big NBA town, and so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if they able to win Game 4. To go up 3-1, but you've got 2 sides of the spectrums, and they could disband the team before the ink's dry on the ownership change.
It's amazing what happened in the last few days. So that's why we love sports and we love business, talking about it. So we'll see how it plays out. It's just another level of fun for us, but we enjoy talking about it too. I want to just do a kind of a recap on the Derby. There's a lot to the Derby, and hopefully some people watched it, had some fun. It was a muddy track. It was a nice, clean race. Clean in the fact that no one got hurt. A lot of mud out there flying around. And I read an article or something out of the Louisville Courier-Journal. I didn't know this going into the race, but here's a tidbit of information for you. I talked about Secretariat. Every horse that raced in the Derby, I think there were 20 entries, all of them were direct or are direct descendants of Secretariat. So that tells you more about Secretariat than I could ever tell you. But every horse that started in that race was a direct descendant of Secretariat. So that's pretty amazing. I didn't do the research on that bloodline, but that's quite impressive. So it was a muddy track, a clean race, and we talked about this. Ken and I did a little bit offline, and we talked about the jockeys and what they go through a little bit. And Ken was asking me a few questions. Not that I'm a jockey by any stretch, but I've been known.
Well, I mean, I noticed that the jockeys never seem to be sitting on the horse. There's always a gap between their butt and the horse. Yeah, and
they're amazing.
I was a little surprised.
The reason they do that, everyone thinks it's just to be aerodynamic. That's not really the reason. That helps a little bit, but really what they're doing is distributing their weight a little more evenly across the back of the animal, so they extend out further, and that makes the weight a little more even for the horse. That's how technical it is. But think about it athletically, how difficult that is. I don't know what you could equate that to.
Maybe riding a bicycle and never sitting down, right? Like, I think that would be the only thing
at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah,
at 40 miles an hour with motorcycles all around you, right? And that's a good way to put it. And so these jockeys are really underrated. I wish they got a little more attention for what they do, because they're fascinating. And I'll give you a little tidbit. I was watching a few minutes of the preview of that race, and Jerry Bailey was the commentator, a great jockey back in the day. It was a muddy track, and they asked Jerry, how many goggles would you go through during a muddy track during the race? And what they do is they stack the goggles. So his answer was, I'd go through 6 pairs of goggles, meaning about every 20 seconds. If you're not in front, that mud's flapping up at you, and you can't see. So think of someone throwing a bucket of mud on you. You're going 40 miles an hour. Your ass is off the back of that horse, and you're tearing around as fast as you can. Every 20 seconds, you got to take that goggles and scoop them, pull them down. They don't go off. They stay around your neck. So you have some fresh eyeglasses to see out of. So he would do that about 6 times during a race just to see what's going on out there. You don't really.
So you're going 40 miles an hour and holding on with one hand.
Yeah.
And they're trying to move. I mean, what incredible skill they must have, right? Like to be able to do that.
And you also have a whip in your hand, and they don't talk about that too much. And it's come a long way from the old days. But it was interesting. After this race, the jockey Alvarado, he got fined, and it wasn't well noted, but he got fined. He used that whip 8 times. You can use the whip 6 times during the race. He got fined, and why he didn't get disqualified was if he had used it 10 times, he would have been disqualified. But he got like a $60,000 or $80,000 fine for using that whip 8 times. So he got everything out of that horse. Obviously, he was and that's probably why that horse isn't running in the Preakness. So I don't really know, but that's my guess. They used every ounce of that horse, so at that time they'll give him a break. But again, jockey's pivotal on this stuff, and I think they're underrated. So just wanted to give you a few footnotes on the Derby, real quick. And we're I'm running a little long on the Derby stuff, but Toby Keith, the great country singer, he had passed away a couple years ago, but he also had a horse that started in that race. He purchased the horse before he passed away, and that horse actually started and finished. He finished near last. He was like a 17th place. But the story is the horse ran, the horse finished, and good for his legacy that was in there. So just a little side note there of some other information.
And I know, and we've talked, and you've gone up to Lake George a lot, and there's a big racetrack over in Saratoga where people can actually see these horses up close. I know you've done it a couple of times. Yeah, and realize how big these animals are, and maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. If Saratoga is a beautiful spot. It's about a 3-hour drive, plus or minus, from both either New York or Boston. It's a great summertime venue. If you want to go up for a weekend or a week, go up to Lake George. It's a great family spot, and you can spend a day at the races. It's a wonder. Everyone says it's been probably one of the best racetracks in the country. It's very festive, very laid back. You're going to see the best horses in the country running. You're going to see probably some of these horses that you just saw in the Derby and coming up in the Preakness and the Derby up there. You'll see the same trainers, big money, a lot of fun. You don't have to know what you're doing, but you know how to have fun. Go up there for the day, have fun. It's a half an hour.
Don't forget to take your golf clubs.
Take the golf clubs. You can go up to Cronin's up in Warrensburg. It's about a half an hour north of there. Great family-owned golf course. Go to Lake George. It's a great spot to stay for a few days or a week. And if you have a little bit of time, about an hour north of all that is Lake Placid, the scene of the 1980 Winter Olympics and all that. It's still there, and all the venue, and they've even renewed it and put a lot of money into that. Go up there. It's beautiful, and there's a lot to do in the summer. It's not just a winter venue. You can see the ski jumpers practicing. There are a lot of activities you can do up there. It's well worth a couple of days up there. It's absolutely beautiful. So if you have time, get to Saratoga, get up to Lake George, get to Cronin's, one of my favorite little golf courses. It's a great family that owns it, and you'll have a good time. And get up to Lake Placid if you have time. The 1980 Winter Olympics, revisit that. It's all good sports stuff, good family stuff. So enjoy all that. Put it on your calendar for this summer. Hopefully I'll see you up there.
So we got a couple numbers. We're going to finish up the Derby. The big news after the Derby was that the Derby winner, Sovereignty, was not going to run in the Preakness. And from a viewer point of view, for TV purposes, that is really a killer for the horse racing industry. The Derby averages, and we look back to about 2000, the Derby average viewer is about 16.5 million viewers. The Preakness with the Derby winner is 8.3 million. The Preakness without the Derby winners, 5.9. Now, the biggest number, the Belmont, which is the third leg of the Triple Crown, when a horse is going for the Grand Slam, which has happened 7 times since 2000, they average 16.4 million viewers. In a non-Triple Crown race, it's 5.5 million. So
world of difference.
World of difference. I think, with Sovereignty not being in, it's really kind of killed the interest in the Triple Crown for the remainder of the year. But, as Tim said, go up to Saratoga in August. Yeah. You'll have a lot of fun. Weather's beautiful up there.
Yep. The meet starts up there around July 10th, goes through Labor Day. Usually runs in the afternoons. It's just a great time. Go up there, have fun. You'll have a blast. And if you don't, just let me know and I'll tell you why you didn't have a blast. But I guarantee you will. All right. We got to move on, though. We got stadiums by the numbers. Before you get into it, Ken's going to give us some numbers on new stadiums and costs and who pays for what. I want to quote an article written by Clark Merrifield in a publication called the Journalist Resource. This was a April 2024 article. I'll
Just to give the people a little background. What caught our attention to this topic is that the Washington Commanders have announced that they're going to have a new stadium in the District of Columbia, and they're targeting a 23rd stadium opening. And it's like, well, who's paying for all this? You got these billion-dollar franchises. So, we've done a little research, and we just want to, bring up a few topics. Um, Tim's got some, probably some detailed numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about what we know about the DC stadium.
Yeah, so when you go out to the stadiums that you visit, just think about this a little bit. And stadiums are always getting built. They don't stay very long unless it's like Fenway Park or some of the other older ballparks. But they're all newer, and they seem to turn over every 30 years or so. But in any event, this is the quote from the article: across the leagues, there have been 8 new stadiums or arenas built since 2020, at a total of construction costs of roughly $3.3 billion. About $750 million in public funds went towards those construction projects. That's just the actual construction. That doesn't get into the street or the infrastructure. That just get the actual building of the stadium itself. All that public money went into those stadiums, and that seems to be the trend. There are very few privately funded stadiums, and even when they are, like up here in Gillette, the crowds will claim that it is privately funded. Well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. There was a lot of public money that went into infrastructure for that. So you can debate that all the time. But in any event, I want to turn it over to Ken. He's the numbers guy on a lot of this. So walk me through some of the numbers and what it really means from a business standpoint of how these things get funded.
Well, I mean, the District of Columbia, like we said, the started with the Washington Commanders. There's some articles on that. And they're proposing that the whole stadium is going to cost $4 billion. The Commanders are going to contribute 2.7, and the District of Columbia anywhere from 1.1 to 1.3 for stadium and what they call housing and green space and sports. A sportsplex. They're proposing a 65,000 seat stadium with a roof. But $4 billion in 2025 is a lot different than $4 billion in 2027 to 2030 when they're building this. Like,
sure.
The infrastructure we all know. I mean, the stadium is supposed to be 2 miles east of the Capitol. I drive that way, going back and forth between North Carolina. I'm back in the New York area now. I mean, the infrastructure there on a good day is terrible. You can't get around. Like, and now you're going to add, this, and who pays for all this? One of the things that they use is state bonds to fund this. So, you invest, you get interest, but the interest is not taxable for federal. So you even have the federal government, us federal taxpayers subsidizing some of these stadiums. And
so really, a Giants fan is in around, not in an direct or indirect way, they're funding part of the Washington team stadium.
Absolutely, sure.
The Washington Commanders, yeah,
sure. Yeah. If they're using bonds, I mean, you always hear about the cash issues in the District of Columbia, yet they're going to come up with 1.3 billion, to put toward this project. And you've done a little reading on, does it actually pay for itself, right? Like it's always, our politicians are always great to say, it's economic growth. And I think there's, not clear, concise that the growth of jobs and building a new stadium is actually paid for with funding, with improved revenue.
I did do a lot of reading on that. I read a lot of different sources, and I couldn't come to a conclusion, and neither could they. You really couldn't find a clear, concise opinion on it, whether or not it's good for the local economy. Clearly, it's good for the immediate. I'm familiar with Gillette Stadium, and there's stores and restaurants and hotels there and all those things. So obviously they benefit, but does the surrounding communities benefit? Does it go from there? The articles that I read, the studies that I read, couldn't conclude that. Even though they all talk about that going in, that's how they propose things. They talk about the economic benefits, the jobs during construction, the permanent jobs. They talk about all that, but it's never been conclusively found that way.
I mean, Washington's currently playing in Maryland now. They left RFK to go to Maryland back, I think it was 97. So they got Maryland to build them a new stadium, and now 30 years later they want to come back. Now they're getting DC to build them a new stadium. The Oakland Raiders went to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The Oakland Athletics are going to Las Vegas. The Buffalo Bills are getting a new stadium in upstate New York.
Yep.
There's a lot of public money, whether it's through infrastructure or state bonds, that goes toward these things, and it's we don't want to turn this into a political thing, but it seems like there's better use for public money than to build stadiums for billion-dollar teams, and the leagues do hold this over the states' heads. They did. Well, we'll just move the team.
Right. Right.
Somebody
They
will give
always
us
say
the
that.
money.
They always threaten that, and it's
Yeah.
and you got a fan base. We do this. We have this discussion because we love sports. We tie it into business, but we love sports, and otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. So we don't. It's not great when you hear your sports team is gonna hold you hostage. We're gonna move. I've been going to the games for 30, 40 years and following you, and all of a sudden you're gonna move because we're not going to give you $500 million. I mean, and you're super wealthy. So I don't want to make it political, but it is discouraging when you hear that from the ownership, and but we just want to put it out there what the numbers are. And if I can find a study that shows I haven't found it yet. I've read quite a few studies on it. I haven't found anything conclusive. Maybe one stadium's different than the other, but overall, I can't find.
And they're complicated transactions, right? These are you're never going to know the real costs. You're never going to be able to measure the revenue. It's just a lot of money out there.
Well, you made a point before we went on the air about how the owners, they're going to keep these numbers separate from what the league's going to see and things like that. Depending on the league, whether it's collective bargaining and so forth. You talked about that a little bit with me off the air. It's going to get super. We're never going to know all the real numbers.
No.
And that's by design.
Absolutely by design.
Yeah, plenty of money there, and you got to call the owners out once in a while. And I guess at the end of the day, just hope you get a good team, and and you can win and have a competitive team. That's really what it's all about, having a competitive team.
And it's not like ticket prices are affordable, as we mentioned. So it's not like you build them a stadium, they're going to give you affordable ticket prices. They're not.
No, they built legacy stadiums now. It's not just a simple stadium that just functions as a stadium. It's much more than that. It's an over the top venue that it's nice, but do you need all that? I guess people are willing to pay for it. So, it continues. I don't need all that, but I really just watch the game. But but people love it. So, that's great if we can continue to afford it. So we'll see. Like you said, with Buffalo and Washington, that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
right. So we're slowly running out of time. We got two quick topics we want to finish up with.
Yep.
The PGA, no live golf. So for all you people that are waiting for live golf, we're not covering that, but we do have a golf story for next week. It's the PGA Championship. It's going to be held at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they play the annual Wells Fargo tournament. Rory McIlroy, coming off the Masters win, has won there 4 times. Tim, how's he going to react? Coming off, is he going to be on all cylinders, ready to go and get that next major, or is he still going to be kind of celebrating the Masters?
I think he's going to be hungry. I saw him post Masters. I saw him with some different things for different interviews, and he looked grounded. He looked ready to go, and he was settled again. I thought. I think he's game's in form, and he's there to win. I think you're going to see him right up there on Sunday afternoon.
This is tailor made for him. Of course, he's dominated on playing well. So it'll be really interesting to see how he does. I think he'll be in the contention. I don't know whether they'll be able to pull it out, but I think he'll definitely be in contention.
Yeah, he's great to watch. He's a great ambassador for the sport. I hope he has a great season and continues to. And I wish him well with all of it. He's been great, and I hope it continues. And I hope he'll have a lot of competition. There's a lot of good golfers out there, and they're all
absolutely
they're all rising up now. So it'll be fun. But we talked
a little bit. We're going to finish up with our Quinnipiac spring sports.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about NCAA and Quinnipiac hockey, but now we have some other sports going on too. So help us out, Ken.
So I didn't know, we had 9 spring sport teams at Quinnipiac, and a lot of these weren't there when we were there.
Yeah,
and we had 4 teams make the NCAA tournament. So the men's tennis, made the NCAA tournament, lost to Clemson. We actually have an acrobatics and tumbling, and that used to be for us tumbling down the hill after a long night,
Yeah,
you
that
know.
was yeah. Probably
But they
scored
lost.
pretty high on
They
that
lost.
too.
They lost in the NCAA tournament to the number 2 team in the country, which is Oregon. We have women's golf, which lost in the NCAA tournament in Arizona, and women's tennis, which made the NCAA tournament, losing to A&M. But they all had great seasons. They all, we also have a softball, baseball, men's and women's lacrosse, and outdoor track and field. And um, look at great job, everybody. Like,
Yeah, it's phenomenal. We may joke about the tumbling, but you're great athletes. And talk about the students and the education they're getting there, because we got to wrap up quick. But
so there's 5 programs achieved a perfect academic progress report, which I think it's obviously we wouldn't have qualified for a perfect academics. Men's lacrosse, men's tennis, women's cross country, women's golf, and women's lacrosse. So look, congratulations, you're doing, you know,
you're doing great
you're
work.
acing your classes and performing great on the field. I mean, I don't
Keep
think
it
we'd be able
going.
to get into Quinnipiac nowadays, Tim.
No, my hat's off to them, the men and the women down there. They're doing a great job. Keep it going, and the alumni, we're watching you. We're proud of you, and just keep it going. Wish you continued success with education and athletics. So, Ken, I
So
think we're out of time for this week. We've gone on a little bit too long, I think. So we got to wrap things up. But I want to thank everybody for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in about a week.
yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
All right, and happy Mother's Day again. Take care. Take
Take
care,
care,
everyone.
Tim. See ya.
Have a good day.